Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Foundation. Rob Gonzalez had built his empire from nothing. At 45, he owned 3 construction companies across Texas, a luxury car dealership, and enough real estate to make most men comfortable for life. But Rob wasn't most men. He was methodical, calculating, and possessed a memory that forgot nothing and forgave even less. His father, Manuel Gonzalez, had been a ruthless businessman who taught Rob one fundamental rule. Trust is a luxury only fools can afford. Everyone will betray you given the right price. Rob had learned this lesson well, applying it to every relationship except one, his family. Rachel Gonzalez, his wife of 20 years, had been different. Or so he believed. She was a real estate agent when they met, ambitious and beautiful, with honey blonde hair and green eyes that could convince anyone to sign a contract. She pursued him relentlessly, and Rob, still young and idealistic, had fallen for her charm. Their daughter Nicole was 17 now, a senior at St. Catherine's Preparatory School. She had inherited Rob's determination and Rachel's persuasive abilities, but unlike her mother, Nicole genuinely loved her father. She worked part-time at a local cafe, saving every penny for months to buy Rob something special for Father's Day. The Gonzalez family lived in a sprawling mansion in the hills outside Austin, complete with a 6-car garage, infinity pool, and enough security cameras to monitor a small town. Rob had installed them all himself. He trusted no one else with his family's safety. On this particular Thursday evening, Rob sat in his home office reviewing contracts when Nicole burst through the door, her dark eyes sparkling with excitement. "Dad, I need to show you something," she said, pulling out her phone. "I've been saving for 6 months, and I finally have enough." She showed him a screenshot from a luxury watch retailer. A Patek Philippe Nautilus, $3,000. Rob's expression softened, a rare occurrence that only Nicole could provoke. "Sweetheart, that's too much money. You don't need to. I want it, Dad. You work so hard for us, and you never buy anything for yourself. Mom's always getting new jewelry and trips, but you give and give." Nicole's voice carried a maturity beyond her years. "Besides, I already put down a deposit. I'm picking it up tomorrow after school for Father's Day." Rob felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest, pride mixed with an emotion he rarely allowed himself to feel. "Love. Nicole, thank you. That means more to me than you know." After Nicole left, Rob returned to his paperwork, but his mind wandered. Perhaps his father had been wrong. Perhaps some people could be trusted completely. He was wrong. Chapter 2. The Betrayal. Friday afternoon arrived with the oppressive heat typical of Texas summers. Rob was in the middle of a conference call with investors when his phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Changed my mind. Taking the money for my vacation with James. The watch can wait." Rob stared at the message, reading it 3 times before the words fully registered. The investors' voices faded into background noise as a cold fury settled in his chest. The same feeling he'd experienced as a child watching his father's business partners try to cheat him. James. Lance Barrett. Rob knew exactly who that was. Lance Barrett was Rachel's fitness trainer, a 32-year-old pretty boy with bleached teeth and muscles that looked better than they performed. Rob had tolerated the training sessions, even paid for them, because Rachel claimed she needed to stay in shape for her real estate career. But vacation? With her trainer? Rob ended the conference call without explanation and immediately called Nicole. She answered on the first ring. "Dad, I'm at the jewelry store right now. The watch is gorgeous. You're going to..." "Nicole, has your mother contacted you today?" "Yeah, about an hour ago. She said she needed the money for something more important." "I don't understand, Dad. I've been saving for 6 months. She knows how important this is to me." Rob's grip tightened on the phone. "Where are you exactly?" "Still at Harper's Jewelers on 5th Street. Mr. Harper said he'd hold the watch until 5 o'clock, but after that..." Nicole's voice trailed off, thick with disappointment. "Stay there. I'm coming." Rob hung up and opened his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. Within minutes, he'd accessed Rachel's credit card statements, phone records, and social media accounts. The picture that emerged was clearer than he'd expected. Rachel and Lance had been planning this trip for weeks. Cabo San Lucas, a 5-star resort, premium suite. The total cost? Exactly $3,000, Nicole's gift money. But the vacation was just the surface. Text messages revealed an affair that had been going on for 8 months. Photos showed intimate dinners, weekend getaways when Rachel claimed to be at real estate conferences, and enough evidence to bury her in any divorce proceeding. Rob's father had been right after all. He drove to the jewelry store in his black Mercedes AMG, his mind already formulating plans. When he arrived, Nicole was sitting outside on a bench, her head in her hands. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I wanted to give you something special, and now." "Nicole." Rob's voice was calm, controlled. "Look at me." She raised her tear-stained face. "Your mother made a choice today, a choice that reveals who she really is." "But you?" Rob's hand gently touched her shoulder. "You showed me who you are. The intent matters more than the outcome." "But the watch will be on my wrist tomorrow." Rob pulled out his platinum credit card. "We're buying it right now. But first, I need you to do something for me." Nicole wiped her eyes. "Anything. I need you to act like nothing happened. Can you do that? Pretend you're okay with your mother's decision, at least until Sunday." Nicole studied her father's face. She'd inherited his intelligence, and she could see something dangerous brewing behind his dark eyes. "Dad, what are you planning?" "Justice," Rob replied simply. "Your mother thinks she can steal from you, betray our family, and face no consequences. She's about to learn otherwise." They walked into Harper's Jewelers together. Rob bought the watch and handed it to Nicole. "Happy Father's Day," he said, from the only family member who truly understands loyalty. That evening, Rob sat in his office making phone calls. The first was to Garrett Williamson, his head of security and a former military contractor. The second was to Frank Waters, a private investigator who specialized in surveillance. The third was to his lawyer, Theodore Farrell, who had helped Rob navigate every major business deal for the past decade. "Theo, I need you to prepare divorce papers. Adultery, theft from a minor, and anything else you can think of. But don't file them yet." "Rob, what's going on?" "My wife is about to discover that betraying a Gonzalez comes with a price she never imagined." Chapter 3, The Calm Before. Saturday morning dawned clear and hot. Rachel was in the kitchen making coffee when Rob entered, freshly showered and dressed for his morning run. He observed her carefully, the way she avoided eye contact, the nervous energy in her movements, the guilt she tried to hide behind casual conversation. "Good morning, honey," Rachel said, her voice artificially bright. "Sleep well." "Like a rock." Rob poured himself coffee, his tone neutral. "What are your plans today?" "Oh, just some errands. Maybe lunch with the girls." Rachel's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her phone. "Actually, I might need to go out of town for a few days. There's a real estate conference in Dallas." Rob nodded thoughtfully. "Sounds important. When do you leave?" "Tomorrow morning, early." Rachel's relief was visible. "I'll probably be gone until Wednesday." "I'll miss you," Rob said, and meant it in a way Rachel couldn't possibly understand. He would miss having a target for his anger so close at hand. After Rachel left for her errands, which Rob knew was a final planning session with Lance, Rob spent the morning implementing the first phase of his plan. He called his daughter into his office. "Nicole, I need to tell you something, and it's going to hurt." Rob showed her printouts of the text messages between Rachel and Lance. "Your mother is having an affair." Nicole's face went through a series of emotions: shock, disbelief, hurt, and finally, anger. "How long?" 8 months. "And the vacation money?" "Was always intended for her lover. Your gift was just convenient timing." Rob's voice was gentle but firm. "Nicole, I want you to understand something. Your mother's betrayal isn't your fault, and it doesn't reflect on you. But it does reveal something important about character." Nicole was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steel. "What do you need me to do?" Rob smiled. Not the warm smile he reserved for his daughter, but the cold expression his business competitors had learned to fear. "Tomorrow morning, your mother leaves for her vacation. I want you to text her around noon, asking if she's having a good time at her conference. Act normal, like you believe her story." Why? Because your mother's going to spend the next few days believing she's gotten away with betraying our family. She's going to relax, let her guard down, enjoy herself with her lover. And when she's at her happiest, when she feels most secure. Rob didn't finish the sentence, but Nicole understood. She'd seen that look in her father's eyes before, usually right before a business rival found themselves destroyed and bankrupted. That evening, the family had dinner together, a farewell meal, though only Rob knew it was truly goodbye. Rachel chatted nervously about her upcoming conference, while Lance sent her encouraging texts that made her phone buzz every few minutes. Nicole played her part perfectly, asking innocent questions about Dallas and real estate trends. Rob contributed just enough to the conversation to seem engaged while internally cataloging every lie, every deception, every moment of betrayal. After dinner, Rachel went upstairs to pack. Rob followed her, standing in the doorway of their bedroom as she carefully folded lingerie and summer dresses, clothes clearly intended for seduction, not business meetings. "Rachel," he said softly. She turned, and for a moment, Rob saw fear flicker in her green eyes. "Yes, have a wonderful trip." The fear faded, replaced by relief and guilt. "Thank you, honey. I love you." "I know you do," Rob replied, "in your own way." After Rachel fell asleep, Rob returned to his office and made more calls. Garrett had confirmed that Lance Barrett would be picking Rachel up at 6 a.m. Frank had already planted tracking devices in both their vehicles and was monitoring their phones. Theodore had prepared not just divorce papers, but a comprehensive legal strategy that would leave Rachel with nothing. But Rob's plans extended far beyond legal proceedings. He opened his laptop and began typing detailed instructions to his network of contacts. Men and women who owed him favors, who feared him, or who simply respected his power. Construction workers, real estate agents, private security firms, journalists, social media influencers, and city officials. By dawn, Rob had assembled an army of people who would help him orchestrate Rachel and Lance's destruction. Not through illegal activities or corporate fraud, but through a carefully orchestrated campaign that would systematically dismantle every aspect of their lives. As he watched Rachel's suitcase disappear into Lance Barrett's BMW at 6 a.m. sharp, Rob felt the familiar calm that came before battle. His father had taught him that betrayal was inevitable, but he'd failed to teach the second part of the lesson, that betrayal must always be punished. Rob Gonzalez was about to provide that education. Chapter 4. The Hunt Begins. By the time Rachel and Lance reached their first stop in San Antonio, Rob had already set the first phase of his plan in motion. Frank Waters called at 9 a.m. with a status report. "They stopped at the Hyatt for breakfast," Frank reported. "Very cozy. Lots of public displays of affection." Lance paid with his credit card, which, by the way, is already maxed out. "Your wife seems to be financing this entire operation." Rob sat in his office, watching security footage of his property on multiple monitors. "What else?" "Lance Barrett is deeper in debt than we initially thought. 3 credit cards maxed, behind on his truck payments, and he owes his gym landlord 4 months' rent. This vacation is being paid for entirely by your wife's personal account." "Perfect. What about their accommodations in Cabo?" "Premium suite at the Grand Solmar Resort. 5 nights, all meals included, spa treatments. Total cost is actually closer to $4,000. Looks like Lance convinced her to upgrade using her own credit card." Rob made notes on a legal pad. "Frank, I want you to stay close, but not too close. Document everything, every meal, every drink, every intimate moment. I want a complete record of how they spend Nicole's money." "Already on it. I got a contact at the resort who'll provide photos and video surveillance. Completely legal since it's all taken in public areas." After Frank hung up, Rob's next call was to Bernard Hester, a man who specialized in reputation management, though not in the way most people understood the term. Bernard could destroy reputations as efficiently as he could build them. "Bernie, I need you to start gathering intelligence on Lance Barrett. Employment history, character references, client complaints, anything you can find. Don't take action yet. Just compile everything." "How deep do you want me to dig?" Deep enough to find out why a 32-year-old fitness trainer can afford luxury vacations on a salary that barely covers rent. Bernie chuckled. You think he's got other income sources? I think Lance Barrett is exactly the kind of man who would seduce married women for financial gain. I want to know how many other wives he's been training. Rob's third call was to Chuck Hayes, a city building inspector who owed Rob several favors. Chuck, I need you to pay a visit to Barrett's Fitness on Maple Street. Full inspection, electrical, plumbing, fire safety, accessibility compliance, the works. When do you want this done? Wednesday morning. While he's out of town. Rob, if I find violations. You'll find violations, Chuck. Lance Barrett strikes me as the kind of man who cuts corners wherever possible. The rest of Monday was spent laying groundwork. Rob personally visited 3 of his construction sites, ensuring that his workers understood the importance of quality work and customer satisfaction. He wanted to be seen conducting normal business while his wife was betraying their family in Mexico. At lunch, Nicole texted Rachel as planned. Hey Mom, how's the conference? Hope you're learning lots. Rachel's response came an hour later. Great sessions today. Very educational. Love you. The timestamp showed Rachel was at a beachside bar in Cabo, a frozen margarita in her hand and Lance's arm around her waist. That evening, Rob called a family meeting with just Nicole. They sat in his office, the Patek Philippe watch prominent on his wrist. How are you handling this? Rob asked. Nicole was quiet for a moment. I keep thinking about all the times she lied to us. All the business dinners and client meetings that were probably dates with him. It makes me sick. Good. That anger will serve you well in what's coming. Rob opened a folder on his desk. Nicole, I want you to understand something about your mother. This isn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This is who she is. He showed her financial records. Your mother has been systematically stealing from our joint accounts for months. Small amounts, but consistent. She's been building a separate nest egg, probably planning to leave for a while. Nicole's face hardened. She was going to abandon us. She was going to try, but she made a fatal error in judgment. Rob's smile was cold. She assumed I was the same trusting fool she married 20 years ago. What happens when she comes back? She doesn't get to come back, Nicole. Not to this house, not to this family, not to the life she's trying to steal from us. Rob's voice was calm, but Nicole could see the fury burning behind his eyes. Your mother chose her side when she stole your gift money. Now she gets to live with the consequences. Tuesday brought the first wave of Rob's counterattack. Bernie called with his initial findings on Lance Barrett. You were right about the other women, Bernie reported. I found 4 other married clients who've been paying for premium training packages that include overnight sessions and weekend retreats. All wealthy, all married, all conveniently discovering fitness needs right before their husband's business trips. How much is he extracting from them? Anywhere from $500 to $2,000 per month, depending on their financial situation. Your wife seems to be his biggest score yet. Rob felt a familiar satisfaction. His instincts had been correct. Bernie, I want you to contact the other husbands. Anonymously. Send them evidence of their wives' activities. All of them. All of them. By Thursday morning. Wednesday morning brought Chuck Hayes's building inspection results. As expected, Barrett's Fitness failed on multiple counts. Outdated electrical systems, insufficient fire exits, and violations of Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. The gym's been red-tagged, Chuck reported. Immediate closure until all violations are corrected. I estimate at least $20,000 in required repairs. Perfect timing, Rob said. Lance Barrett is about to discover that his business no longer exists. Frank called that afternoon with surveillance updates from Cabo. They're living it up pretty thoroughly. 5-star dining every night, couples massages, sunset sailing. Your wife charged another $1,500 in spa treatments this morning. How are they getting along? Lance is playing the perfect boyfriend, but I'm catching some interesting audio through the listening devices. He's been making calls to someone named Erica every night after your wife falls asleep. Very intimate conversations. Rob's research revealed that Erica Frost was Lance's actual girlfriend, a 24-year-old cocktail waitress who believed Lance was using rich clients to fund their future together. The web of deception was even more complex than Rob had imagined. Frank, I want you to arrange for Erica to discover exactly where Lance is and who he's with. Make it look accidental. How accidental? Social media posts from the resort's official accounts. Someone as photogenic as Lance and Rachel will definitely end up in the background of promotional photos. That evening, Rob received the call he'd been expecting. Nicole's phone rang at exactly 7 p.m., Rachel calling for their nightly check-in. "Hi, Mom. How's Dallas?" Nicole's performance was flawless. "Wonderful, sweetheart. The conference has been very enlightening." Rachel's voice carried the relaxed tone of someone who believed they'd successfully deceived their family. "Are you learning lots about real estate?" "More than I ever expected." Rachel laughed, probably looking at Lance across their resort suite. "I'll tell you all about it when I get home." "I can't wait," Nicole said, and Rob heard the knife edge in his daughter's voice that Rachel completely missed. After the call ended, Rob made his final preparations for Thursday, the day Rachel and Lance would discover that their vacation was about to become a nightmare. Chapter 5. The Trap Springs. Thursday morning in Cabo, San Lucas dawned perfect and cloudless. Rachel woke in Lance's arms, feeling more alive than she had in years. The premium suite overlooked the crystal blue waters of the Sea of Cortez, and for the first time in months, she felt free from the suffocating weight of her marriage to Rob. She didn't know that 1,500 miles away, her husband was systematically destroying her life. The first blow landed at 8:30 a.m. when Lance's phone exploded with notifications. His girlfriend Erica had discovered his vacation through a resort's Instagram post that showed him and Rachel sharing a passionate kiss at the infinity pool. "What the hell is this?" Lance stared at his phone as angry texts poured in from Erica. The final message was a photo of his apartment building with the caption, "Your stuff is on the sidewalk. Don't come back." Rachel, fresh from the shower and wrapped in a luxury bathrobe, noticed Lance's distress. "What's wrong, baby?" It's nothing. Just a drama back home." Lance forced a smile, but Rachel could see the panic in his eyes. At 9 a.m., Lance received another call, this one from his business partner and gym landlord. "Lance, where the hell are you? The city shut us down yesterday. Full closure, red tagged. They're saying we need 20 grand in repairs before we can reopen." Lance's face went white. "That's impossible. We just had an inspection 6 months ago." "Well, we failed this one spectacularly. Electrical, fire safety, ADA compliance, everything. I've got 4 months of your back rent sitting on my desk, and now no income from the gym. You better get back here and figure this out, or I'm finding a new tenant." Rachel watched Lance pace the balcony, his paradise vacation rapidly turning into a crisis management session. She felt a flicker of unease, but dismissed it. These things happen in business. At 10:15 a.m., the third bomb dropped. Lance's phone rang with calls from 4 different numbers, the husbands of his other clients. Each conversation was brief and carried the same theme: "Stay away from my wife, or else." By 11 a.m., Lance Barrett realized his entire business model had been exposed and destroyed in a single morning. But he still didn't understand that he was facing Rob Gonzalez. Back in Austin, Rob was orchestrating the second phase of his assault. He called Gustavo Bowers, a journalist who specialized in exposing Austin's social elite. "Gustavo, I have a story for you about a fitness trainer who's been seducing wealthy married women for financial gain. Complete with photos, financial records, and testimony from multiple victims." "How complete are we talking?" "Complete enough to destroy him socially and professionally." The story writes itself. Predatory trainer targets vulnerable wives, steals from families, operates unlicensed business. "I'm sending you everything right now. When do you want this published?" "Tomorrow morning." Front page of the lifestyle section. Rob's next call was to Denise Pugh, a social media influencer with 500,000 followers who specialized in exposing cheaters and scammers. "Denise, I have content that will break the internet." Within hours, the machine was in motion. Gustavo's article was being fact-checked and prepared for publication. Denise was creating a viral video expose. Bernie was anonymously tipping off lifestyle bloggers, gossip websites, and local TV stations. But Rob's masterpiece was still to come. That evening, while Rachel and Lance were having dinner at the resort's most expensive restaurant, Frank Waters received his final instructions. Frank, it's time for the coup de grace. I want you to arrange for hotel security to confiscate Lance's credit cards. On what grounds? Suspected fraud. A concerned citizen noticed suspicious spending patterns and reported potential identity theft. Rob's voice was calm. Make sure it happens publicly, in front of other guests. And then Rachel Gonzalez discovers exactly how much Lance Barrett was willing to steal from her family for this vacation. At 9:30 p.m. Cabo time, Lance Barrett's world completely collapsed. Hotel security approached their table just as he was ordering another bottle of champagne with Rachel's credit card. Mr. Barrett, we need to speak with you privately about your payment methods. The conversation that followed was conducted in full view of the restaurant's other patrons. Lance's credit cards were confiscated pending fraud investigation. His wallet was searched. His explanations became increasingly desperate and inconsistent. Rachel sat frozen as she realized that Lance had no money of his own, that their entire vacation was being financed by her accounts, and that the man she'd fallen in love with was essentially a sophisticated con artist. But the final revelation came when hotel security showed them the fraud report that had triggered the investigation, a detailed complaint filed by a concerned family member who noticed unusual spending patterns on Rachel Gonzalez's accounts. Rachel's blood turned to ice as she read the report. The language was precise, legal, and unmistakably familiar. The complaint included detailed financial records, copies of text messages, and a complete timeline of Lance's relationship with multiple married women. Rob, she whispered. That night, Rachel tried calling her husband 17 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. She tried Nicole, but her daughter's phone was turned off. Lance, meanwhile, was discovering that his problems extended far beyond a vacation gone wrong. His business was destroyed, his apartment lease terminated, his girlfriend gone, and his reputation about to be annihilated in the morning news cycle. As Rachel and Lance sat in their premium suite, which they could no longer afford and couldn't leave because their return flight wasn't until Saturday, they finally understood the scope of what they were facing. Rob Gonzalez hadn't just discovered their affair. He had systematically engineered their complete destruction while they were celebrating their betrayal of his family. The hunt was over. Now came the reckoning. Chapter 6. The Reckoning Unfolds. Friday morning brought a media firestorm that exceeded even Rob's expectations. Gustavo Bowers' article in the Austin Chronicle hit the newsstands with the headline, Fitness Trainer's Web of Deceit, How Lance Barrett Seduced Austin's Elite Wives. The story detailed his systematic targeting of wealthy married women, complete with photos from the Cabo vacation showing him with Rachel. But it was Denise Pugh's social media expose that turned Lance Barrett into Austin's most hated man. Her video, titled Predatory Trainer Steals from Families for Luxury Vacations, went viral within hours. By noon, it had been shared over 50,000 times and picked up by 3 local TV stations. The video included surveillance footage from Barrett's fitness showing Lance with various married clients in compromising positions, financial records proving his debt situation, and audio recordings of him bragging about his stupid rich housewives to other trainers. In Cabo, Rachel and Lance were trapped in a nightmare. The hotel management, now aware of their situation through the fraud investigation, had frozen their suite access pending payment resolution. Lance's humiliation was complete when resort security escorted him through the lobby in front of other guests. Rachel called Rob's office from the hotel business center, her hand shaking as Theodore Farrell answered instead of her husband. Theo, where's Rob? I need to talk to him. Mrs. Gonzalez, I'm Mr. Gonzalez's attorney. Your husband is currently unavailable, but I've been instructed to inform you that divorce proceedings have been initiated. You'll receive formal papers upon your return to Austin. Divorce? Theo, this is all a misunderstanding. I can explain. Mrs. Gonzalez, the evidence of your extramarital affair is comprehensive and documented. Additionally, you've been charged with theft from a minor, specifically taking your daughter's savings without permission for personal use. Rachel's world tilted. Theft from a minor? That's ridiculous. Nicole is my daughter. Nicole is 17 years old, and the money was her personal savings taken by you for an extramarital vacation. In Texas, that constitutes theft from a minor, punishable by up to 2 years in prison. The line went dead. Lance, meanwhile, was discovering that his legal troubles extended beyond financial fraud. Bernie Hester had arranged for 3 of his former clients to file sexual harassment lawsuits, claiming they were coerced into intimate relationships through financial pressure and emotional manipulation. By Friday evening, Lance Barrett was facing potential criminal charges, civil lawsuits, and complete social ostracism. His gym was permanently closed, his business license revoked, and his reputation destroyed beyond repair. But Rob's plan was far from complete. That night, as Rachel and Lance sat in the airport hotel trying to figure out how to pay for their early return flight, Nicole made her first public statement about her mother's betrayal. She posted a single photo on her social media accounts, the Patek Philippe watch on her father's wrist, with the caption, "When I saved for 6 months to buy my dad a Father's Day gift, my mother stole the money for her vacation with her boyfriend. This is what real character looks like. Dad bought the watch anyway and taught me that family loyalty means everything. Some people are worth the sacrifice. Others aren't." The post was shared within their social circle and beyond, garnering thousands of supportive comments. Austin's elite social network, which had always admired Rob's success and respected his family, rallied around Nicole and condemned Rachel's actions. The social isolation was immediate and complete. Rachel's real estate career, built on relationships with Austin's wealthy families, evaporated overnight. Her clients canceled listings, her colleagues distanced themselves, and her broker called to terminate her association with the firm. Saturday morning, Rachel and Lance's return flight was a study in humiliation. They sat in the last row of economy class, the only seats they could afford, while other passengers whispered and pointed after recognizing them from the viral video. Lance was arrested at Austin Bergstrom International Airport on charges of operating an unlicensed business and fraud related to his gym's health department violations. The timing wasn't coincidental. Rob had arranged for the arrest to occur in the most public possible venue. Rachel took a taxi to what had been her home for 20 years. When she arrived, she found the locks changed and her belongings neatly packed in boxes on the front porch. A legal notice taped to the door informed her that the house was no longer her residence and that trespassing would result in immediate arrest. She called Nicole's phone and was shocked when her daughter actually answered. "Nicole, baby, please. Let me explain." "Explain what, Mom?" "How you stole my money. How you lied to us for months. How you chose your trainer over your family." Nicole's voice was cold, controlled, a perfect mirror of her father's tone when he was truly angry. "It's not that simple. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. Dad, show me everything. Every text message, every lie, every betrayal. You didn't just cheat on him, Mom. You cheated on me too." "Nicole, I'm still your mother." "No, you're not. You stopped being my mother the moment you decided Lance Barrett was more important than your family. Dad never gives up on the people he loves, but he also never forgives the people who betray him. You made your choice." The line went dead. Rachel sat in her car outside the house where she'd raised her daughter, watching through the windows as Rob and Nicole had dinner together. They looked happy, peaceful even, as if her absence had lifted a weight from their shoulders. She tried calling Rob one final time. This time he answered. "Rachel, Rob, please. We need to talk. I can fix this." "There's nothing to fix. You show me who you really are." And I responded accordingly. His voice carried no anger, no emotion at all, just the cold finality that had terrified his business competitors for years. "The house, the money, the social destruction. This is insane. I made a mistake, but..." "You didn't make a mistake, Rachel. You made a choice. You chose to steal from our daughter, betray our marriage, and humiliate our family. Now you get to live with the consequences." "Rob, please. I have nowhere to go, no job, no..." "You have Lance. Isn't that what you wanted?" "Lance is in jail." "Then perhaps you should have chosen more carefully." Rob's voice carried a hint of dark amusement. "Goodbye, Rachel. Don't contact Nicole or me again." As Rachel sat in her car, homeless and friendless in the city where she'd once been part of the elite social circle, she finally understood the man she'd married and betrayed. Rob Gonzalez didn't just win. He annihilated his enemies so completely that they never recovered. And she had just learned that in his mind, she was no longer his wife. She was his enemy. Chapter 7. The Final Moves. 2 weeks after Rachel's return from Cabo, the destruction of her life was so complete that even Rob's business associates began to whisper that perhaps he'd gone too far. But Rob Gonzalez had never been a man who did anything halfway, and betrayal, especially from family, demanded absolute consequences. Lance Barrett's life had become a cautionary tale. The sexual harassment lawsuits had frozen his assets, the criminal charges prevented him from finding employment, and the social media campaign had made him recognizable enough that he couldn't work anywhere in Austin. He'd moved into a studio apartment in the worst part of town, surviving on welfare and the occasional charity of former gym members who didn't know the full story. Rachel's situation was marginally better, but only because she'd managed to find work as a part-time receptionist at a low-end motel on the outskirts of town. Her real estate license had been suspended pending investigation into her business practices, and her former lifestyle had become a memory. But Rob wasn't finished. On a Thursday evening, he called Nicole into his office for what would be their final conversation about her mother. "Nicole, I want you to understand something important," Rob said, his voice carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom. "Your mother is going to try to contact you again. When she does, she'll appeal to your emotions, your sense of family, your natural compassion." Nicole, now 18 and preparing for college, had inherited her father's steel backbone. "She could try. I won't listen." "Good, but I need you to understand why this is so important." Rob opened a folder on his desk. "Your mother didn't just betray me, Nicole. She showed you that family loyalty means nothing to her. If she could steal from you once, she would do it again." "I know, Dad. I'm not changing my mind." Rob smiled, the genuine expression he reserved only for his daughter. "I'm proud of you, but there's something else. Your mother's situation is about to become much worse." "Worse how?" "Lance Barrett is about to discover that his legal troubles are just beginning. And when he realizes how thoroughly I've destroyed his life, he's going to look for someone to blame." Rob's prediction proved accurate. On Friday night, Lance Barrett showed up at Rachel's motel room, drunk and desperate. The conversation that followed was captured by security cameras that Rob had arranged to be installed in the motel's common areas. Lance blamed Rachel for everything: the media exposure, the lawsuits, the criminal charges, his complete social ostracism. In his alcohol-fueled rage, he accused her of being a rich bitch who destroyed my life for fun. Rachel's response revealed the full depth of her self-delusion. "I gave up everything for you. My husband, my daughter, my home, everything. You gave up nothing." Lance screamed. "You were bored with your rich husband and wanted to play with a pretty trainer. Well, congratulations. You played yourself right into poverty." The argument escalated into a physical confrontation that ended with Lance being arrested for domestic violence and Rachel being hospitalized with minor injuries. The incident made the local news, adding another layer of humiliation to her already destroyed reputation. But it also served Rob's final purpose. The next morning, Rob visited Rachel in the hospital. She looked up from her bed, one eye blackened and her arm in a sling, and saw her former husband standing in the doorway like an avenging angel. "Rob." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Rachel." He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. "I thought you should know that Nicole and I watched the security footage from last night." Rachel's remaining hope died in her eyes. "Nicole saw that. She saw you defending the man who humiliated our family, choosing him over the daughter you abandoned." Rob's voice was calm, conversational. "She also saw him hit you." "Rob, please." Nicole wanted to press charges against Lance for assault. "I told her it wasn't necessary." Rob smiled, and Rachel finally understood the difference between his business smile and the expression of a predator. "Lance Barrett will face consequences for touching a member of my family, regardless of your current relationship status. What are you going to do to him? Nothing illegal, nothing traceable. But Lance Barrett will discover that there are fates worse than prison." Rob's eyes held the same cold calculation that had built his empire. He'll spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, wondering when his past will catch up to him. Rachel stared at her former husband, finally seeing him clearly for the first time in 20 years. You're not the man I married. Yes, I am. You just never bothered to pay attention. Rob turned toward the door, then paused. Rachel, Nicole asked me to give you a message. What? She said to tell you that she hopes you're happy with your choice. Because those are the only consequences you'll ever face from our family. We're done with you. Rob left the hospital and drove to his office, where he made 2 final phone calls. The first was to Manuel Moses, a man who specialized in making problems disappear permanently, not through violence, but through relocation services for people who needed to start over somewhere far away. Manuel, I have a job for you. Lance Barrett needs to understand that Austin is no longer a safe place for him to live. How permanent are we talking? Permanent enough that he never contacts my family again. The second call was to Garrett Williamson. Garrett, I want you to arrange a meeting with Rachel's motel manager. I'm going to buy that property. You want to evict her? I want to give her 6 months free rent and a paid bus ticket to whatever city she chooses. After that, she's on her own. Garrett was quiet for a moment. That's surprisingly generous. I'm not a monster, Garrett. I'm a father who protected his family from betrayal. Rachel made her choice, and she's faced the consequences. But I won't have Nicole wondering if I was unnecessarily cruel to her mother. And after the 6 months? After 6 months, Rachel Gonzalez will be someone else's problem in some other city. As long as she stays away from Austin and never contacts Nicole again, I have no interest in her existence. That evening, Rob and Nicole had dinner together in their home. Just the 2 of them, as it had been for the past month. Nicole was leaving for college in the fall, but the bond between them had only grown stronger through the crisis. Dad, can I ask you something? Nicole said as they finished their meal. Anything. Do you ever regret how far you went with Mom and Lance? Rob considered the question carefully. Nicole, your mother didn't just betray me. She betrayed you. And she betrayed the concept of family itself. When someone shows you who they really are, you have to respond accordingly. But she's still my mother. Biologically, yes. But being a parent is about more than genetics. It's about loyalty, sacrifice, and putting your child's well-being before your own desires. Your mother failed that test. Rob's voice softened. You saved for 6 months to buy me a gift because you love our family. She stole that money to fund her affair. That tells you everything you need to know about character. Nicole nodded slowly. I understand, and I agree with what you did. I just wanted to make sure you don't carry any guilt about it. Rob smiled at his daughter, the only person in the world who truly knew him and loved him anyway. No guilt, sweetheart. Only certainty that I protected what matters most. 3 days later, Lance Barrett disappeared from Austin. Manuel Moses had convinced him that certain individuals were looking for him, and that his best chance of survival was to start over in a different state under a different name. Rachel took the bus ticket to Phoenix, carrying only a small suitcase and the knowledge that her former life was permanently over. And Rob Gonzalez sat in his office, the Patek Philippe watch glinting on his wrist, knowing that he had taught his daughter the most important lesson of all. Loyalty must be rewarded, and betrayal must be punished, regardless of family bonds. The price of betrayal had been paid in full. Chapter 8. The Inheritance. 6 months after Rachel's departure, Nicole Gonzalez was thriving at the University of Texas, majoring in business with a minor in psychology. She called her father every Sunday evening, their conversations ranging from academic achievements to investment strategies. Rob had begun teaching her the family business, recognizing that she possessed not only his intelligence, but his instinct for reading people's true intentions. On one particular Sunday in December, Nicole brought up a subject that had been weighing on her mind. Dad, I've been thinking about what happened with Mom, and I realize I learned something important from watching you handle the situation. What's that? That forgiveness and trust are 2 different things. You can forgive someone for hurting you, but that doesn't mean you have to trust them again or allow them back into your life. Rob felt a surge of pride. At 18, Nicole understood concepts that had taken him decades to learn. Exactly. Your mother's actions revealed her character. Once someone shows you they're willing to betray family for personal gain, they'll do it again if given the opportunity. Have you heard anything about her? Nothing directly. Theodore tells me she's working at a restaurant in Phoenix, trying to rebuild her life. Lance Barrett, on the other hand, seems to have vanished completely. Rob didn't mention that Manuel Moses sent him quarterly reports confirming that Lance was working construction in Oregon under an assumed name, still looking over his shoulder and avoiding social media. Some lessons needed to be permanent. The conversation was interrupted by Rob's business phone. Theodore Farrell was calling with news that would test everything Rob had taught his daughter about loyalty and betrayal. "Rob, we have a problem. Rachel has hired a lawyer in Phoenix. She's claiming that the divorce proceedings were fraudulent and that she was coerced into signing papers under duress. What's her legal standing? Weak but not impossible. She's arguing that she was emotionally traumatized and not of sound mind when she agreed to the settlement. Her new lawyer is also claiming that some of the evidence against her was obtained illegally." Rob's expression hardened. "Theodore, be very clear with me. Is there any chance she could successfully challenge the divorce or claim any portion of my assets?" "Small chance, but it exists. Texas is a community property state, and if she can prove coercion or fraud in the proceedings, she might be entitled to a portion of the marital assets." After hanging up, Rob sat in his office considering his options. He could fight Rachel's legal challenge through conventional means, spending months in court and risking public exposure of his more aggressive tactics. Or he could end this permanently. He chose option 3. He would test Nicole's loyalty one final time. That evening, Rob called his daughter back. "Nicole, I need to tell you something, and then I need you to make a choice." "What's wrong?" "Your mother is trying to overturn our divorce. She's hired a lawyer and is claiming that I coerced her into signing the papers. If she succeeds, she could potentially claim half of everything I've built, including your inheritance." Nicole was quiet for a long moment. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to give you the choice. I can fight this legally, which might take years and cost millions. I can make the problem disappear permanently, which would ensure your future is secure. Or I can negotiate with her, give her enough money to make the lawsuit go away. What do you think I should choose?" Rob smiled at his daughter's directness. "I think you should choose based on what you've learned about character and consequences. Your mother had everything: a loving family, financial security, social status. She threw it all away for a man who hid her in a motel room. Now she wants to come back and take half of what we've built together." "She already made her choice," Nicole said quietly. "She chose Lance over us. She chose her affair over her family. She chose to steal from me rather than respect my gift to you. And people who make those choices don't get to come back when their consequences become uncomfortable." Nicole's voice carried the same steel backbone that Rob had possessed at her age. "Handle it however you think is best, Dad. But don't let her take anything from our family again." Rob felt a complex mixture of pride and concern. His daughter had inherited his strength, but he wondered if she truly understood what she was asking him to do. "Nicole, when I say handle it, I need you to understand that there are different levels of permanence. Are you asking me to make this go away temporarily or permanently? I'm asking you to protect our family the same way you always have, whatever that takes." The next morning, Rob made a single phone call to a number he hadn't used in over a decade. When the voice answered, Rob simply said, "I need to discuss a permanent solution to a recurring problem." "How permanent?" "Permanent enough that the problem never resurfaces, but subtle enough that no one asks questions." "I understand. It'll take 2 weeks to arrange." Rob hung up and immediately called Theodore. "Theo, I want you to prepare a counteroffer for Rachel's lawyer. We'll give her $100,000 and a signed agreement that she never contacts Nicole or me again. If she accepts, the offer stands. If she refuses, she gets nothing. And if she refuses, then the problem resolves itself through other means." Rachel's lawyer called back within 3 hours. She would accept the settlement. But Rob had already set the permanent solution in motion, and some operations couldn't be recalled once initiated. He made one final call to cancel the arrangement, but learned that certain types of problems, once scheduled for resolution, developed their own momentum. 2 weeks later, Rachel Gonzalez died in a car accident in Phoenix. The police report indicated brake failure on a mountain road, a tragic but not uncommon occurrence in older vehicles. Nicole flew home for the funeral, which was attended by exactly 3 people: Nicole, Rob, and Theodore Farrell. No other family members appeared, no friends from Rachel's former life, no colleagues from her Phoenix restaurant job. As they stood at the graveside, Nicole asked her father a single question: "Did you know this would happen?" Rob looked at his daughter, intelligent, strong, and now carrying the weight of understanding what family loyalty sometimes required. "Nicole, there are some questions that are better left unasked, and some answers that are better left unsaid." "Exactly." Nicole nodded slowly. She was her father's daughter, and she understood that some prices were paid in full, even when the payment method remained unspoken. As they drove away from the cemetery, Rob reflected on the lessons he'd learned from his father and passed on to his daughter. Trust was a luxury only fools could afford. Betrayal must always be punished, and family loyalty, once broken, could never be repaired. The Gonzalez family was now complete at exactly 2 members, both of whom understood perfectly that some bonds were stronger than blood, and some betrayals were unforgivable. Chapter 9. Legacy. 5 years later, Nicole Gonzalez sat in her father's office, now their office, reviewing quarterly reports from their expanded business empire. At 23, she had inherited not only Rob's intelligence and business acumen, but his absolute intolerance for betrayal and his uncompromising approach to family loyalty. The watch Rob had bought with her gift money still sat prominently on his wrist, a daily reminder of the difference between family and blood relations. Nicole wore a matching piece, a Cartier watch Rob had given her for her college graduation, engraved with the words "Loyalty rewards loyalty." Their business had grown substantially since Rachel's death. Nicole's natural talent for reading people and her inherited ruthlessness had made her invaluable in negotiations and partnership decisions. Together, they had built an empire that extended far beyond construction and real estate. On this particular evening, they were reviewing a potential acquisition when Nicole's assistant buzzed in with an unexpected call. "Ms. Gonzalez, there's a gentleman on line 3 who says he's your cousin. His name is Frank Gonzalez." Rob and Nicole exchanged glances. Rob's family had been estranged for decades, ever since his father's business partners had tried to cheat the family out of their holdings. Rob had handled that situation with characteristic thoroughness, and the Gonzalez name had since commanded both respect and fear in certain circles. Nicole answered the call on speaker. "This is Nicole Gonzalez." "Nicole, this is Frank Gonzalez, your father's cousin. I know we've never met, but I'm calling because I have some information that might interest your family." Rob leaned forward. "Frank, this is Rob. What kind of information?" "Information about Rachel's death." The room went completely silent. After 5 years, Rachel's death had become simply another closed chapter in their family history. But Frank's tone suggested that chapter might not be as closed as they believed. "What about Rachel's death?" Rob's voice carried the dangerous calm that his business associates had learned to fear. "I think we should meet in person. There are things that need to be discussed face to face." They arranged to meet at a private club where Rob maintained membership, neutral territory where conversations could be held without electronic surveillance. Frank Gonzalez turned out to be a man in his 50s with the same dark eyes and calculating expression that ran in the family. "Rob, Nicole, thank you for meeting me. What I'm about to tell you will probably come as a shock." Frank opened a briefcase and removed several documents. Rachel didn't die in an accident. She was murdered. Nicole's expression didn't change, but Rob felt a chill of recognition. "How do you know this?" "Because I'm the one who killed her." Rob stared at his cousin, processing this revelation. "Why?" "Because someone paid me to. Someone who wanted Rachel dead, but couldn't afford to be connected to her death." Frank's smile was cold and familiar. "Someone who hired me through a series of intermediaries so that the contract could never be traced back to them." Nicole spoke for the first time. "And you're telling us this because?" "Because the person who hired me died last month. Natural causes, heart attack. And before he died, he confessed to his lawyer about ordering Rachel's death. The lawyer is now trying to decide what to do with that information." Rob felt the familiar sensation of pieces clicking into place. "What do you want, Frank?" I want to know if you knew your wife was going to be killed when you set certain events in motion 5 years ago. The question hung in the air like smoke. Rob looked at his daughter, seeing his own understanding reflected in her eyes. Nicole had inherited his intelligence, and she could see the same connections he was seeing. Frank, Rob said carefully, I think you should tell us exactly what you know. I know that Rachel's accident was arranged by a man named Gregory Chun, a business associate of yours who lost a major contract when your divorce became public. Chun blamed Rachel for damaging your reputation and costing him money. Rob remembered Chun, a property developer who had severed their partnership after the media circus surrounding Rachel's affair. The man had been bitter about losing access to Rob's resources and connections. Chun hired me to kill Rachel through 3 intermediaries, so the contract could never be traced back to him. But here's the interesting part. Chun told his lawyer that he was convinced you wanted Rachel dead, but couldn't arrange it yourself due to the legal scrutiny. Nicole leaned forward. Are you suggesting my father somehow manipulated this Chun person into ordering the hit? Frank's smile widened. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just reporting what Chun believed before he died. He was convinced that Rob had somehow maneuvered him into taking action that Rob couldn't take himself. Rob felt a familiar satisfaction, the same feeling he'd experienced when business competitors destroyed themselves trying to outmaneuver him. And what does Chin's lawyer intend to do with this information? That depends on what he believes happened. If he thinks you orchestrated Rachel's death, he'll go to the police. If he thinks Chun acted independently out of misplaced loyalty, then the matter stays buried with Chun, Nicole finished. Exactly. Rob considered his options. The situation was complex, but not unmanageable. Frank, what's your assessment of this lawyer's character? Pragmatic, concerned primarily with protecting his own interests. He doesn't want to be involved in a murder investigation unless he has to be. Then I suggest you tell him the truth. That Gregory Chun was a bitter man who blamed an innocent woman for his business failures and took action that no one could have predicted or prevented. Frank nodded slowly. That's certainly one way to interpret the situation. It's the only way to interpret the situation, Nicole said, her voice carrying the same authority as her father's. Because anything else would be speculation about matters that can't be proven. After Frank left, Rob and Nicole sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Nicole spoke. Dad, did you know Gregory Chun would react that way when the divorce became public? Rob looked at his daughter, brilliant, strong, and now carrying the weight of understanding what family protection sometimes required. Nicole, there are some questions that are better left unasked, she finished. I understand, but I need to know if I'm going to inherit more than just your business empire. Rob studied his daughter's face, seeing the same calculation that had made him successful and feared. Nicole, what did you learn from watching how I handled your mother's betrayal? That loyalty must be rewarded and betrayal must be punished. That family comes first, always. That some people will destroy themselves if you give them enough rope. And that sometimes the most effective action is the action you never have to take directly. Nicole's smile was razor sharp. Gregory Chun destroyed himself trying to curry favor with you. Rachel died because of her own choices, not because of anything you did to her. Rob felt the complex mixture of pride and concern that had become familiar over the past 5 years. And if the lawyer decides to pursue this further, then Gregory Chin's estate will face a wrongful death lawsuit that destroys his family's finances. His lawyer will face disbarment proceedings for failing to maintain client confidentiality. And Frank will discover that the Gonzalez family protects its own. Rob looked at the Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, a symbol of family loyalty purchased with money that his wife had tried to steal from their daughter. Nicole wore her matching Cartier, a symbol of the bond they'd forged through betrayal and consequence. Nicole, you've learned the most important lesson about family and business. Sometimes the most powerful action is the one you never have to take directly, because other people will take that action for you if you understand their motivations well enough. Exactly. 3 weeks later, Gregory Chin's lawyer concluded that his client had acted independently out of misplaced loyalty and business frustration. The matter was closed without investigation. Frank Gonzalez disappeared back into whatever shadows he inhabited, and the Gonzalez family continued building their empire on the foundation that Rob's father had taught him decades earlier. Trust no one completely, but understand everyone's price. Rob and Nicole never discussed Rachel's death again. But every Father's Day, Nicole gave her father a small gift. Never expensive, always meaningful. And they both remembered the lesson that had forged their unbreakable bond. Family loyalty was everything. Betrayal was unforgivable. And some prices were paid in full, even when the payment method remained forever unspoken. The Gonzalez legacy was complete. A father and daughter who understood that in a world full of betrayal, only family could be trusted, and only if that family proved itself worthy of trust every single day. Rob Gonzalez had built an empire, protected his daughter, and eliminated every threat to their family's future. Nicole had inherited not just his wealth, but his understanding that some bonds were stronger than blood, and some lessons were worth any price. The watch on Rob's wrist continued to tick, marking time for a family that had learned the hardest truth of all. Love without loyalty was worthless, but loyalty without consequences was powerless. Their story was complete, their enemies vanquished, their bond unbreakable. The price of betrayal had been paid in full. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Call from Hell. The scorching Iraqi sun beat down on Forward Operating Base Delta as Staff Sergeant Ramon Moody cleaned his rifle for the third time that morning. Sweat dripped from his weathered face onto the weapon stock, a face that had seen too much combat, too many friends lost to IEDs and sniper fire. At 34, Ramon carried himself with the lethal precision of a man who'd spent 12 years in special forces, his muscular frame moving with calculated efficiency even in the simplest tasks. The satellite phone's shrill ring cut through the desert silence like a blade. Ramon's ice-blue eyes narrowed as he recognized the international code. Personal calls to the FOB were rare and usually meant bad news. Staff Sergeant Moody, he answered, his voice carrying the gravelly tone that made enemy combatants think twice. Sir, this is Detective Lewis Harrington with the Denver Police Department. I'm calling about your son, Timothy. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Ramon's grip tightened on the phone until his knuckles went white. What about my son? Sir, I'm afraid Timothy is missing. He was last seen 3 days ago with your brother-in-law, Damon Booker. We've been searching. 3 days. Ramon's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that made his fellow soldiers look up from their equipment. Why wasn't I called immediately? Detective Harrington cleared his throat uncomfortably. Sir, your wife initially told us Timothy was staying with friends. She only contacted us yesterday when she claimed he didn't come home. Ramon's jaw clenched. Alexis, his beautiful, manipulative wife who'd married him for the military benefits and steady paycheck, not for love. He'd suspected for months that something was wrong. The way she avoided his video calls, the hollow sound in her voice when they did speak, the expensive purchases that appeared on their credit card statements. What else? Ramon demanded. Sir, we found evidence in Mr. Booker's vehicle. Blood evidence. We're running tests now, but... The phone slipped from Ramon's numb fingers, clattering onto the metal table. Blood. His 8-year-old son's blood. Timothy, with his mother's blonde hair and his father's determined spirit, the only pure thing left in Ramon's increasingly dark world. Sergeant First Class Grant Frank approached cautiously. Moody? You good, brother? Ramon's eyes had gone dead, the transformation so complete that Grant instinctively stepped back. In 12 years of military service, Grant had never seen anything more terrifying than the look that crossed Ramon Moody's face in that moment. Pack your gear, soldier, came the voice of Major Timothy Bolton from behind them. The base commander had obviously been monitoring the call. You're going home. Emergency leave approved. Ramon retrieved the phone with mechanical precision. Detective Harrington was still talking, his voice tinny and distant through the speaker. Your brother-in-law has a history of domestic violence and drug-related offenses. He's been in and out of the system for years. Your wife never mentioned. Ramon ended the call without another word. He stood slowly, his mind already shifting into operational mode. The same cold, calculating mindset that had made him one of the military's most efficient killers was now focused on a single objective: finding out what happened to his son and making everyone responsible pay in ways they couldn't imagine. As he walked toward his quarters to pack, fragments of conversations from his last leave echoed in his memory. Alexis whispering on the phone late at night. Damon's frequent visits when he thought Ramon wasn't watching. The way Timothy had seemed nervous around his uncle, trying to stay close to his father during those final days before deployment. Ramon had ignored the signs, trusted his wife, believed in the sanctity of family. That trust was about to become the most expensive mistake of several people's lives. Chapter 2. Ghosts in the Machine. The military transport touched down at Denver International Airport 18 hours later. Ramon moved through the terminal like a predator among sheep, his single duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He'd used the flight to make calls, pull strings, and activate networks built over a decade of covert operations. His first stop wasn't home. Instead, he drove his old Ford pickup to a storage unit on the outskirts of the city, one that Alexis knew nothing about. Inside, wrapped in moisture-proof containers, was everything a special operations veteran might need for off-the-books work. Untraceable weapons, surveillance equipment, and enough cash to disappear for months if necessary. Ramon's phone buzzed with a text from Detective Harrington. Need to debrief you ASAP. Come to station when you land. He ignored it. The police would follow procedures, process evidence, build a case that might take months to resolve. Ramon had learned in places like Afghanistan and Syria that sometimes justice required more direct methods. His second stop was a bar called Murphy's Tavern, where Jerry Singh waited in a corner booth. Jerry was thin and nervous-looking, the kind of man who blended into backgrounds and saw everything. He'd been Ramon's intelligence source during his gang infiltration days before enlisting, and he still had his ear to the street. Ramon. Jerry's voice was barely above a whisper. Man, I heard about Timothy. I'm sorry. What do you know? Ramon slid into the booth, his pale eyes fixed on Jerry's face. Your wife's been running around for months. Started right after your deployment. But Ramon. Jerry swallowed hard. It's not what you think. Explain. It's her brother, Damon. They've been together. Like together. And that's not even the worst part. Ramon's expression never changed, but the temperature at the table seemed to drop 10 degrees. Continue. They've been planning something. Talking about starting fresh, getting rid of complications. Your boy Timothy. Jerry's voice trailed off. My son isn't a complication, Ramon said quietly. He's 8 years old. I know, man. That's why I'm telling you this. Damon's been talking to some real bad people. Dealers, enforcers. Word is they were supposed to make Timothy disappear permanently, make it look like an accident or kidnapping. Ramon absorbed this information with the clinical detachment he'd learned in interrogation training. His wife wasn't just cheating. She was planning to murder their son to clear the way for her incestuous relationship with her brother. The betrayal cut deeper than any combat wound he'd ever received. Where's Timothy now? Ramon asked. That's the thing. Nobody knows. Damon was supposed to handle it 3 days ago, but something went wrong. There was a struggle in his car, blood everywhere. But no body, no witnesses. Damon's been hiding out ever since. Where? Jerry pulled out a piece of paper with an address. Old Warehouse District. But Ramon, the place is probably armed. Damon's scared, and scared animals are dangerous. Ramon pocketed the address. What else? Your wife's been telling people you're not coming back. That you got killed in action and the military just hasn't notified next of kin yet. She's already been to see a lawyer about life insurance. The final piece clicked into place. Alexis and Damon hadn't just planned to kill Timothy. They planned to stage Ramon's death too, probably during his next deployment. A perfect little incestuous family with no loose ends and a substantial military life insurance payout. Ramon stood to leave, but Jerry grabbed his arm. Man, whatever you're planning, be careful. These aren't just cheaters, they're killers. And they've got nothing left to lose. Ramon looked down at Jerry's hand until the smaller man released his grip. Neither do I. Chapter 3. The Hunter's Moon. Ramon's childhood home sat on 2 acres outside Denver, far enough from neighbors to ensure privacy. He pulled into the driveway at 11 p.m., noting immediately that Alexis's BMW was gone. The house was dark except for a single light in the master bedroom. He entered through the back door using his key, moving through the familiar spaces with the silence of a man trained in close-quarters combat. Every room held memories of better times. Timothy's artwork on the refrigerator, family photos on the mantelpiece, the lingering scent of Alexis's expensive perfume. The bedroom door was closed. Ramon could hear voices, Alexis talking to someone on the phone, her tone casual and unconcerned. He placed his ear against the door. Told you, the military will handle the notification. We just have to wait a few more days. Then I can start the Grieving Widow Act. Her laugh was cold, brittle. No, Damon's handling the Timothy situation. It'll look like he ran away, got picked up by some pervert. These things happen all the time. Ramon's hand moved to the door handle, but he stopped himself. Not yet. He needed more information, needed to understand the full scope of their betrayal. The insurance money will set us up nicely. And Ramon's death benefits, plus the house. She paused. What do you mean you can't find the boy? How hard is it to dispose of an 8-year-old? Ramon backed away from the door, his operational mind cataloging details. Alexis was talking to someone else, not Damon. The plan was bigger than just the 2 of them. And Timothy, his son, was still alive, still out there somewhere. He retreated to his study and opened the safe hidden behind his military commendations. Inside were documents, photographs, and a USB drive containing every piece of intelligence he'd gathered over the years. Ramon had always been thorough, always prepared for the worst-case scenario. He just never imagined it would involve his own family. The laptop hummed to life as he accessed encrypted files and activated dormant surveillance programs. Within minutes, he had location data on every phone number in Alexis's contact list, financial records going back 2 years, and security footage from local businesses near Damon's last known address. What he found made his blood run cold. The affair had started 6 months ago, but the planning went back even further. Alexis had been researching military death benefits, life insurance policies, and legal procedures for missing children. She consulted with lawyers about custody issues in the event of spousal death. Most damning of all, she purchased a large life insurance policy on Timothy just 3 weeks before Ramon's deployment. His son wasn't just an obstacle to their relationship. He was worth more dead than alive. Ramon's hands trembled slightly as he closed the laptop. In all his years of combat, facing terrorists and enemy combatants, he'd never felt the pure, crystalline rage that now filled his chest. These people had betrayed not just him, but an innocent child. His child. The bedroom had gone quiet. Ramon moved to the window and watched Alexis's BMW pull into the driveway. 2 figures got out, Alexis and a man he didn't recognize. Not Damon. Someone new. Ramon faded back into the shadows of his study as the front door opened. He could hear Alexis's voice, higher now, nervous. Told you he's supposed to be dead. The notification should have come through by now. Well, he's not dead, the man replied in a gravelly voice. Because Jerry Singh just called Damon. Your husband's back in town, and he's asking questions. There was a long silence. Then Alexis spoke again, her voice now carrying the sharp edge of panic. Then we need to move up the timeline. How quickly can you make Ramon disappear? Tonight, if necessary. But it'll be messy and expensive. I don't care about messy. I care about permanent. Ramon smiled in the darkness, a cold, predatory expression that would have terrified anyone who saw it. His wife had just signed her own death warrant, and she didn't even know it. But first, he had to find Timothy. Everything else could wait until his son was safe. As the voices moved toward the living room, Ramon slipped out the back door and into the night. He had work to do, and dawn was still hours away. Chapter 4. Into the Abyss. The warehouse district of Denver was a graveyard of industrial ambition, rusted buildings, and broken dreams stretching toward the mountains like metal tombstones. Ramon parked his truck 3 blocks away and moved through the shadows with practiced stealth, night vision goggles turning the darkness into a green-tinted world of possibilities. Damon Booker's hideout occupied the 3rd floor of a converted textile factory. Ramon spent 2 hours conducting surveillance, mapping guard positions, and identifying entry points. There were 4 men inside, Damon plus 3 others who looked like street muscle. All armed, all nervous. Through the thermal scope he'd retrieved from his storage unit, Ramon could see heat signatures moving inside the building. One smaller signature in a back room, motionless for long periods. His heart hammered against his ribs. Timothy. The entry was textbook Special Forces, silent, swift, and devastating. Ramon bypassed the street-level guards through a maintenance shaft, emerging in the 2nd floor electrical room. The building's power grid was decades old, easily manipulated by someone with his training. When the lights went out, panic erupted on the 3rd floor. Shouts, running footsteps, the distinctive sound of weapons being readied in the dark. Ramon smiled and activated his night vision. The first guard died without knowing what hit him, a knife between the ribs, quick and silent. The second managed to scream before Ramon's garrote cut off his voice permanently. By the time the emergency lighting kicked in, 2 men were dead and Ramon was a ghost moving through their midst. Damon Booker huddled in the main room with his last remaining bodyguard, a nervous young man who kept pointing his pistol at every shadow. Ramon studied them through a gap in the wall, noting Damon's deteriorated condition. The man was sweating despite the cool air, his hands shaking, eyes darting constantly toward the back room where Timothy was being held. "He's here," Damon whispered. "I can feel it. That psycho's here." "Who's here?" the bodyguard asked. "Excellent," replied a gravelly voice Ramon recognized as Vernon Knowles. "And the boy?" "Disposed of as requested. Damon handled it yesterday." Ramon's jaw clenched. They thought Timothy was dead. "Any complications?" This from Carl Bates, the lawyer. "None. The scene was staged to look like a kidnapping. Blood evidence will lead police to suspect human trafficking. They'll search for months, find nothing, and eventually close the case." "And Damon? He's become a liability," Knowles said. "Nervous, unstable, using too much product. We'll need to clean up that loose end before he talks to anyone." Ramon filed away this information. They were planning to kill Damon too, probably within days. The insurance companies will need death certificates for both husband and son before releasing funds, Bates explained. Military death benefits are automatic, but the private policies require documentation. "How long?" Alexis asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then you'll have access to everything. "And after that?" Knowles chuckled, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. "After that, you disappear. New identity, new life. Someplace warm with no extradition treaties. What about you two?" "We take our cuts and move on to the next client. This business model is very profitable." Ramon had heard enough. These weren't just criminals. They were serial killers operating an insurance murder business. Alexis wasn't their first client, and she wouldn't be their last. But she would be their final one. Ramon retreated through the ventilation system, his mind already formulating a plan. Alexis, Knowles, and Bates thought they were predators. They were about to learn what it felt like to be prey. At 4 p.m., Ramon's phone rang with a call from Detective Harrington. "Mr. Moody? I'm sorry to inform you that we found more blood evidence at the warehouse where your brother-in-law was hiding. We believe Timothy may have been seriously injured." "I understand," Ramon replied, injecting just the right amount of grief into his voice. "There's something else. Damon Booker was found dead this morning. Single gunshot to the head, execution style. This case just became a homicide investigation." Ramon smiled grimly. Knowles was already cleaning up loose ends, just as predicted. "Detective, I need to ask a favor. My wife is not handling this well. Could you hold off on notifying her about Damon's death for 24 hours? I want to be there when she hears the news." Of course, Mr. Moody. Take all the time you need. Ramon ended the call and returned to his planning. Damon was dead, which simplified things. 3 targets remained: Alexis, Knowles, and Bates. All of them thought Ramon was dead and Timothy was disposed of. They were about to discover how wrong they could be. The hunter had become the hunted, and the game was about to begin in earnest. Chapter 6: Sins of the Father. Ramon spent the evening teaching Timothy how to use the cabin security system. His son was resilient, a trait inherited from both sides of the family, though Ramon doubted Alexis's resilience would serve her well in the coming days. "Dad, why did Mom want to hurt me?" Timothy asked as they sat by the fireplace. Ramon had been dreading this question. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that his mother tried to have him killed for money? Sometimes people make bad choices, son. Very bad choices. Your mother, she's sick. She needs help that I can't give her. Are you going to help her anyway? Ramon looked into his son's innocent eyes, eyes that still held love for the woman who'd tried to murder him. I'm going to make sure she never hurts anyone again. That's a different kind of help. The next morning brought news that Vernon Knowles had been found dead in his office, apparent suicide. A note confessed to kidnapping and murdering Timothy Moody, then killing Damon Booker to cover his tracks. The note apologized to the families and cited overwhelming guilt as the reason for taking his own life. Ramon read the news report with professional admiration. Someone was very good at staging crime scenes. Probably Alexis herself. He'd underestimated her operational capabilities. His phone rang. Detective Harrington again. "Mr. Moody, I have good news and bad news. The good news is we've solved your son's case. Vernon Knowles left a full confession before killing himself. And the bad news? I'm sorry, but based on the confession and evidence, we have to presume Timothy is deceased." Knowles detailed the disposal method. "We may never recover the body." "I understand, Detective. Thank you for everything you've done." After ending the call, Ramon sat in silence for several minutes. Alexis had just made her final move, eliminating Knowles and positioning herself as the grieving widow and mother. She probably thought she was free and clear. She was wrong. That afternoon, Ramon drove to Denver to conduct final surveillance on his targets. Carl Bates was in his office, conducting business as usual. Alexis was at home, playing the part of the devastated mother for the neighbors who brought casseroles and offered condolences. Ramon watched her through binoculars from a concealed position across the street. She moved through the house like an actress rehearsing for a performance, touching Timothy's toys with theatrical sadness, sitting by the window with a handkerchief pressed to her eyes. It was a masterful performance. She'd probably practiced in the mirror. At 6 p.m., Alexis left the house dressed in black, driving toward downtown. Ramon followed at a distance, watching her enter the same high-rise where Bates had his office. But instead of going to the 20th floor, she stopped at the 15th. The directory listed it as a private medical practice. Dr. Gustavo Quick, plastic surgeon. Ramon felt the pieces clicking into place. Alexis wasn't just planning to disappear with the insurance money. She was planning to become someone else entirely. New face, new identity, new life. Through the building's security cameras, which he'd hacked hours earlier, Ramon watched Alexis meet with Dr. Quick. They discussed surgical procedures, healing times, and payment schedules. The doctor showed her computer simulations of how she would look after the operations. The woman in the simulations bore no resemblance to the Alexis Moody who'd married a young soldier 12 years ago. Ramon made his decision. The surgical consultation lasted 45 minutes. When Alexis left the building, she found a note on her windshield. "Your husband and son are waiting for you at home. Come alone, where the police will receive very interesting evidence about insurance fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. A friend." 20 minutes later, Alexis burst through the front door of their house, her composure finally cracking. "Hello, Alexis," Ramon said from the living room sofa. "You look surprised to see me." She stood frozen in the doorway, her face cycling through shock, terror, and calculation. "Ramon? But you're dead." The military said. The military says a lot of things. Sometimes they're even true. Ramon gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit down. We need to talk. Where's Timothy?" The question came out as a whisper. Safe, which is more than you can say for yourself. Alexis slowly approached the chair, but remained standing. I don't know what you think you know, but I know everything. Ramon's voice cut through her protests like a blade. The affair with your brother. The insurance policies. The murder plot. Vernon Knowles. Carl Bates. All of it. Her facade crumbled completely. Damon said you were dead. He showed me the official notification. Damon's dead. Knowles is dead. You killed them both to cover your tracks. Ramon leaned forward slightly. Very professional work, by the way. I'm impressed. You can't prove anything. I don't need to prove anything to a court of law, Alexis. I'm not a police officer anymore. The implication hung in the air between them like a loaded weapon. What do you want? She asked finally. I want you to understand something, Ramon said quietly. You tried to murder my son. Our son. For money. There is no forgiveness for that. There is no redemption. There is only consequence. Ramon, please. The consequence, he continued as if she hadn't spoken, is that you're going to confess everything to the authorities. You're going to plead guilty. You're going to serve your time in prison, however long that might be. And if I refuse? Ramon's smile was colder than Arctic wind. Then I'll remind you that I've spent 12 years learning how to make people disappear without a trace. And unlike you, I've never failed at it. The choice was simple, life in prison or no life at all. Alexis chose prison. Chapter 7, The Reckoning. The confession took 3 hours to record. Alexis detailed every aspect of the conspiracy while Ramon operated the camera, ensuring that her admission was legally admissible. She spoke of the affair with Damon, the recruitment by Vernon Knowles, the planning stages of the murders, and her own role in executing the plan. What emerged was a portrait of systematic evil that went far beyond insurance fraud. Knowles had been running his operation for years, targeting military families because their deaths were easier to stage overseas. Alexis wasn't his first client. She was number 7 in a series of cases stretching back to 2019. How many children? Ramon asked during one particularly damning revelation. 12, Alexis whispered. Maybe more. Knowles kept records, but he destroyed them after each job. Ramon felt sick. They hadn't just been planning to murder Timothy. They'd been part of a systematic operation that had killed at least 12 other children for insurance money. Where Knowles' records? Safe deposit box. First National Bank, downtown branch. Box 847. Key. Alexis reached in her purse and handed over a small brass key. I was supposed to clean it out after everything's settled. Ramon pocketed the key. Those records would implicate dozens of people in multiple murders. The FBI would be very interested in that evidence. One more question, Ramon said as the confession wound down. Did you ever love Timothy? Even a little? Alexis looked directly into the camera for the first time in hours. No, he was always your child. Never mind. I tolerated him because he was part of the package. But love him? No. The honesty was more devastating than any lie could have been. Ramon stopped the recording and uploaded the file to an encrypted server accessible to law enforcement. Then he made a series of phone calls to Detective Harrington, to the FBI, to the Military Criminal Investigation Division. By morning, the story would be international news. By evening, dozens of other cases would be reopened. The Knowles conspiracy would unravel completely, bringing justice to families who'd never known their loved ones were murdered. What happens now? Alexis asked as Ramon prepared to leave. Now you wait for the police. They'll be here within the hour. And Timothy? Timothy will never see you again. He'll never know you tried to kill him. As far as he's concerned, you died in a car accident while I was overseas. Clean, simple, merciful. You're going to lie to him? I'm going to protect him from the truth until he's old enough to handle it. That's what fathers do. Ramon walked toward the door, then stopped. One final thing, Alexis. In prison, you'll meet other women who've hurt children. They don't tend to live very long. I thought you should know that. He left her sitting in the living room of what had been their home, surrounded by the wreckage of a life she'd destroyed for money. 45 minutes later, police cars filled the driveway. Chapter 8, Clean Slate. The media frenzy lasted for weeks. The Knowles conspiracy dominated headlines across the country as investigators uncovered a network of murder-for-hire operations targeting military families. Alexis Moody became the face of evil, a mother who tried to kill her own child for insurance money. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Carl Bates received 25 years for his role in the conspiracy. 7 other accomplices were arrested in connection with a broader operation. Ramon and Timothy watched the sentencing from the cabin in the mountains, far from the media circus. Timothy still believed his mother had died in a car accident. The boy was healing, physically and emotionally, but the scars would take years to fade completely. "Dad, are we going to stay here forever?" Timothy asked one evening as they sat by the lake behind the cabin. "Would you like to? I like it here. It's peaceful, and nobody tries to hurt us." Ramon nodded. The cabin could become their permanent home. He had enough money saved to live comfortably, and Timothy could be homeschooled or attend a small local school. A quiet life, far from the complexities of the world that had produced people like Alexis and Vernon Knowles. But peace had a price. Ramon's phone rang constantly with calls from former military contacts, from law enforcement agencies, from private contractors who needed someone with his particular skills. The world was full of people who hurt innocent children, and Ramon Moody had proven very effective at stopping them. "Timothy," he said finally, "how would you feel about helping other kids who are in trouble?" "What do you mean?" "I mean using what we've learned to make sure other families don't go through what we went through." Timothy considered this seriously. He was mature beyond his years now, having seen the worst that human nature could offer. Would it be dangerous? Sometimes. But we'd be careful. We'd be smart. And we'd only go after people who really deserve it. Like Mom did. Ramon winced at the casual way his son referenced Alexis. To Timothy, his mother's death was just a fact of life now, no more emotionally charged than the weather. "Like your mother did," Ramon confirmed. "Then yes, I want to help." That night, after Timothy was asleep, Ramon made a series of phone calls. By morning, he had 3 active cases: missing children, suspected murders, families destroyed by people who thought they were untouchable. The first case involved Margie Maldonado, a woman in Phoenix who'd taken out large insurance policies on her stepchildren and was planning a tragic accident during their summer vacation. The second was Salvatore Sanchez, a corrupt social worker in Miami who was selling children to human traffickers. The third was a ring of foster parents in Seattle who were collecting government checks for children they'd killed years ago. All of them thought they were safe. All of them were wrong. Ramon Moody had found his new mission in life, protecting children from the monsters who wore human faces. He was very good at it, and the world needed people who were willing to do what was necessary when the system failed. The hunter had become the protector, and there was no shortage of prey. Chapter 9. Blood and Redemption. 5 years later, the compound in rural Montana looked like a hunting lodge from the outside. Rustic cabins, dense forest, crystal clear lake. From the inside, it was something else entirely. A training facility, safe house, and operational headquarters rolled into one. Timothy Moody, now 13, could field strip an assault rifle in 40 seconds, speak 3 languages fluently, and hack into most civilian computer systems. He could also bake chocolate chip cookies, maintain a 4.0 GPA in his online coursework, and beat his father at chess 2 games out of 3. Ramon watched his son through the kitchen window as Timothy practiced defensive driving techniques in the compound's obstacle course. The boy had grown tall and lean, with his father's ice blue eyes and his mother's analytical mind, though he'd learned to use that analytical nature for protection rather than predation. They'd saved 43 children in 5 years. The Maldonado case had been resolved with Margie suffering a tragic accident of her own, a gas leak explosion that looked completely natural to investigators. Salvatore Sanchez had been found dead in his office, an apparent heart attack brought on by stress. The Seattle foster ring had simply vanished one night, their bodies never recovered. Ramon's network had grown to include former military personnel, reformed criminals, and families who'd lost children to predators. They operated outside the law when necessary, within it when possible, and always with surgical precision. The latest case file sat open on Ramon's desk. Diane Clay, a kindergarten teacher in Denver who was suspected of abusing her students. The police had investigated twice, but couldn't build a case that would stand up in court. The children were too young to testify effectively, the evidence too circumstantial. But Ramon had learned that courts weren't the only venue for justice. His encrypted phone buzzed with a message from Grant Frank, now retired and working as the compound's security chief. Clay confirmed. Multiple victims. Ready for extraction. Ramon closed the file and checked his watch. Timothy would be finished with driving practice in 10 minutes. They could be in Denver by tonight, have Clay neutralized by tomorrow morning, and be back home in time for Timothy's birthday on Thursday. Dad! Timothy's voice carried across the compound as he parked the modified Jeep with military precision. We've got movement on the perimeter cameras. Ramon's hand moved instinctively to the pistol on his hip as he pulled up the security feed. 3 black SUVs were approaching on the access road. Official vehicles with government plates. Federal, Ramon announced into his radio. All personnel to standby positions. The compound had been designed for exactly this scenario. Hidden exits, emergency protocols, evidence destruction procedures. Ramon had always known that eventually someone would come asking questions about the high-profile deaths that seemed to follow him around the country. The SUVs stopped at the main gate. Federal agents emerged, FBI by their bearing and equipment. The lead agent approached the intercom with the confident stride of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Ramon Moody? Agent Tamara Wise, FBI. We need to talk. Ramon activated the intercom. About what? About Alexis Moody. She was found dead in her cell yesterday morning. Apparent suicide. Ramon felt no grief, no satisfaction, just a sense of completion. Alexis had finally paid the ultimate price for her crimes. I'm sorry to hear that, he said through the intercom, but I don't see how that concerns me. My wife died in a car accident 5 years ago. Mr. Moody, we know who you are and what you've been doing. The question is whether we're going to work together or work against each other. Ramon considered this. The FBI wouldn't have come alone if they were planning to arrest him. This felt like recruitment. Timothy, activate Protocol 7, he said into his radio. Protocol 7 would scrub their computer systems and prepare the compound for immediate evacuation, if necessary. He opened the gate. Agent Wise was a serious woman in her 40s, the kind of federal agent who'd spent her career building cases against people who hurt children. She entered the compound's main building with professional wariness, her backup agents flanking her but not drawing weapons. Impressive setup, she said, noting the surveillance equipment and tactical gear. Very professional. I like to be prepared, Ramon replied. What do you want, Agent Wise? I want to offer you a job. Timothy entered the room carrying a tray of coffee, playing the part of the innocent teenager perfectly. Agent Wise's eyes softened slightly when she saw him, a reminder that everything Ramon had done was for children like Timothy. What kind of job? Ramon asked. The kind that lets you keep doing what you're already doing, but with official backing. Budget, resources, legal protection. Agent Wise pulled out a tablet and showed him a presentation. The FBI was forming a new task force focused on crimes against children. Cases that fell through the cracks of normal law enforcement. Cases where traditional methods weren't effective. We need people who are willing to go places we can't go, do things we can't do. People who understand that sometimes justice requires more direct methods. Ramon studied the proposal. Official sanction for his operations. Government resources. Legal immunity for actions taken in the course of duty. And Timothy? Full scholarship to any university he chooses, followed by a position with the Bureau, if he's interested. His skills are impressive for someone his age. Timothy looked at his father. In his eyes, Ramon saw the same cold intelligence that had helped them survive 5 years of hunting predators. His son had grown up in this world, understood its necessities, accepted its moral complexities. What do you think, son? I think, Timothy said carefully, that 43 children aren't enough. There are thousands more out there who need help. Agent Wise smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Ramon made his decision. The war against people who hurt children would continue, but now it would have the full weight of the federal government behind it. When do we start? Tomorrow. We have a case in Las Vegas, a daycare operator who's been selling access to the children in her care. Local police have been investigating for months without results. Understood. Ramon stood and extended his hand. Agent Wise, welcome to the war. As they shook hands, Ramon caught Timothy's reflection in the window. His son was smiling, not with the innocent joy of childhood, but with the cold satisfaction of a predator who just found new hunting grounds. Some people were born to protect the innocent. Some were born to hunt the monsters who threaten them. The Moody family had found their calling. 3 months later, a daycare operator in Las Vegas was found dead in her office, an apparent overdose. The children in her care were relocated to safer facilities, and the trafficking ring she'd been part of was completely dismantled. The investigation noted that the woman had been under surveillance by federal agents, but those agents had no knowledge of how she'd obtained the drugs that killed her. In rural Montana, Ramon and Timothy Moody were already planning their next operation. The war continued. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.